Are you ready to get woke? Welcome to the Woke as podcast with your host, Alex Lazarev.
All right, welcome, beautiful beings, to another Woke as podcast. Now, this is a special one because we're here with an epic dude who, I'll tell you what I know. All right, we'll start there. We'll get to know him. It'll be a fun hangout. But I guarantee it's going to be a fun one. That's my intuition. So we just had a little festival here, Anarch Awaken, the first one here in Acapulco. It was just a one-day event, but it was very beautiful. A lot of great people. And I saw this guy, and even before I saw his talk, I just felt his energy. He was just very grounded, very present. Then I saw his talk, and I was just really impressed because I know it takes really a lot to get to that place where you're very, very comfortable in your energy and who you are and what you're here for. So it was very obvious this guy was really on purpose, and it was funny. At the end of his talk, they're like, "You got 5 minutes," and he was like, "Well, I got a lot to say, but I ain't gonna rush it. It's just gonna be me." And I was like, "That's the way." So it was just great to watch him, and basically he works with plant medicines. He travels all around the world doing that. And this guy, of all the guys that I know that connect with nature and are rooted in, this guy. And I think you're all going to feel that when we hang out with him. So I thought it would just be cool, like just say hi, give people a little brief, like, who are you, what are you doing on the planet, and then we'll sort of get into the story and the journey and all the kind of the fun ups and downs of the path, you know.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just believe it or not, this guy doesn't have. He's never. Not only has he not been on a podcast, he's never listened to a podcast. He literally lives out in nature. So I have to tell him the basics. You got to hold it up to your mouth. Not all the way, but just like a little bit below is good.
All right.
And it's going to sound good.
All right. Like right on the chin?
Yeah, like a little, like just floating around there. That'll work.
Okay.
Closer the better.
All right. This is a first, that's for sure. Thank you for having me, Sasha. It's, man, what am I doing on this earth? I'm just showing up. Wherever I'm called, I show up in my full presence. Makes it simple that way. So that way I don't have to be in my mind. I could be completely out of my mind and into my heart. And I'm a father, first and foremost. My name is iambearheart. I'm a student of the energies, meaning that primarily what I do is understand and teach deeper connection to everything, self, everything around us, seen and unseen. You spoke just a bit about plant medicines and animal medicines, and so that's a path that I'm on as well, is understanding more, to go deep inside myself, to be able to connect much more in an intimate way with the plants and with the animals and with spirit. And in doing so, being a guide for other people to remember how to do it themselves. Instead of thinking I know something, I know that I know nothing other than my own personal experience and what my life has brought me. And I make that very clear. People ask me all the time, or they call me a shaman, or they call me these different names, and I say, no, I'm just iambearheart. I'm just a simple man. I'm a father. I'm a partner. I'm a son. I'm a protector. And that's somewhat of what I do. I utilize a lot of the time, first and foremost, to be a father and to be an active part in my family. The rest of the time I'm in the bush, somewhere in the world, the jungles, the mountains, the oceans, you name it, that's where I'm pulled to. I reteach people how to connect and reconnect back to nature, and feel that the only way that we can go higher is if we root lower. And so that's a big part of what my calling is to help people remember how to root and reconnect to everything around us. And in other words, have a different perception of what we see. The majority of the time people walk outside their house and When I ask them, can you identify 3 plants? They look at me like I'm crazy. And so that shows me that's a start. As I can help people remember what's around us already, to then have a deeper, keen sense of all of their senses to understand truly what's all around us and how to tap into that. Yeah, brother. Nice. Mm-hmm.
Nice. So, how did you manage to not fall into the standard? Because where did you actually where did you grow up and start your incarnation?
That's a deep one. That's a deep one.
I guess I'll finish the question before. That's the only thing with having the one mic. It's like if there's a quick thing. But it also forces me to shut up and listen when someone's talking, which I like. But so simply, presumably you grew up in some city, and how did you manage to build a life where you're actually out in nature, and you have such a healthier lifestyle, and you're just on the path? Because most people, they just don't escape. They're just like, if you happen to be born in LA, you're fucked. That's you're gonna get a job, and you're gonna just, it is what it is. So how in the world did you manage to get out of that? Wow.
I managed to escape the paradigm in many different ways. However, yes, I was born in San Diego, California, so I was born in a big city, more in the rural parts. However, the city was where I was born and raised, and had I wouldn't say a typical family, but for the most part, I guess I could just say from my own personal experience, I had a typical childhood, which that goes pretty deep as well. The way that I escaped as far as an adult goes, because up until adulthood, that's a whole nother life as well. But adulthood, I was in business and started my own businesses. I was a professional dog trainer for over a decade, and I was in sales, and you name it, man. It was pretty much the same old thing. Get the job, get the education, even though I didn't do that. For me, it was more about life experience and how much life experience I can accrue within this lifetime. I always knew that the behind the desk, in the air condition, having a boss, having to ask somebody if I could have a day off, all of that, it just wasn't for me. When I was a young child, I told my mother that the last thing I would ever do is work corporate America. And I wasn't going to ask anybody for anything. If I was going to do something, I was going to do it myself, regardless if I had a pension or retirement or whatever else. Half of my family went that route. The other half of my family were entrepreneurs. So I had the balance of being able to be in sort of both sides to figure out what was going to be best for me. So in my early 20s, I started my own dog training company, and that gave me the opportunity to start truly learning from dogs and wolves. And my entire life, my family took us out to the deserts and the mountains and taught different survival skills and different self-sufficient skills and reconnection skills. So that's something that came pretty natural. However, with my dog training company, within the first year, I was making over $100,000 being a dog trainer. And it afforded me a lifestyle where I pretty much had to keep doing that for a while. And one thing led to another, and it was time for me to shift. So how did I shift out? I trusted in spirit. And during a month-long ayahuasca vision quest, there's a few different names that you could have for that, she really came through and expressed to me what my mission was going to be moving forward. That had to do with separating from my wife. I have 2 children, and she said that it was going to be the hardest thing that I ever had to do. And obviously it wasn't just the energy telling me that. There had been a lot going on to bring me to that point, but being a father and being an intentional father, That was the hardest thing. It wasn't about coming out of the business life. It was about switching around the paradigm of what I felt family was supposed to be, being that my father wasn't there and left when I was 1 year old. That's one thing I never wanted to do, was separate from family. And the energy told me to trust and fully trust. And what my mission was to have a space specifically that was there for the women and children to be safe, to do the deep work, and everything else would be taken care of. So over a decade of creating a business, I wouldn't say an empire, but I would say a smooth running operation, making up to $250,000 a year, I just had to drop it. And from the bank account to the website to my email, everything, just fully stop and put my faith over. So that's what I did at that time. There was a lot that came up until then, but that's how I went fully into this way instead of having double life. I trusted fully, and I sacrificed, and the rest is the rest.
It's very interesting. I was just blown away by how many parallels we have in our lives. Like, I've also been recently divorced. It's, again, super one of the hardest things ever. Unbelievable. And yeah, around 2015, you know, I was teaching, you know, dating courses and pickup courses, making lots of money, you know, 6 figures too. And I just knew one day I was there, and my heart was like, I can't do, this is not for me. I can't be doing this anymore. And even though it was a lot of pressure because it's the money, and I'm internet famous for doing that. I have a fan base and all this kind of stuff, and it's just like, I can't be this person. And the same thing, it was just like, I just had to trust. I had to trust that whatever the next thing will be fine. So I let go of any of those ideas, and I started my men's event, the Infinite Man Summit, and yeah, and now I'm a lot more content helping the men, and a lot more, overall, just to become better beings and create the life that they want. It's not just all about the poon poon. The poon poon was fun though, but yeah, man, that trust is such a huge thing, and that's, I think, one of the biggest things why people are so disconnected and lost. There's no connection to whether you call it spirit or source or God or whatever. They're just like, literally, you walk in the ocean and you just connect, and you just let the energies just clean you. You walk out there and you feel yourself. And I think most people haven't even had that experience of like going into the river and just connecting with the spirits and allowing the river to wash them, or going to the ocean, or even just a hike. You know, I mean, there's people out there literally, they haven't been in nature in years, you know.
Put their bare feet in nature.
Yeah, and anything. And so it's just where our whole culture is so devoid of any spirituality. I mean, real spirituality, like connection to the divine. It's just, whoa, it's just terrible. And if you, there's a guy, there's a shaman, not a shaman, he's more of like a, oh God, I don't even know what to call him. Anyway, you can call him a shaman, called Malidoma Some, and he's from, in Africa, he's from a tribe called the Digara, and he writes books, and everything is spirit. Like, everything in the tribe, it's all about spirit. Like, they don't even take the body seriously. It's like all their ancestors are there, and they're told, like, you gotta do this, this, and this. And so, like, their entire lives is just listening to spirit and doing good for spirit, and connecting with their ancestors, everything. And like, they almost treat like this life is like, this one's not even important, you know. Like, and it's like, we're in the exact opposite. It's like this body and this ego and this is all real, and this is and this is real, and there's nothing else. There's nothing else out there. You're just this. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's just the opposite of the truth. It's like, what? So so any opportunities for people to just connect is so crucial. Okay, that's awesome. And also, you love dogs. I'm a dog lover, man. That's one of my, I love them. I love them so much. If I had a big ass house where I live, I just know I'm gonna end up with 20 dogs, because when there's a street dog, I'm like, okay, well, you're coming with me. You know what I mean? I just can't help it. Okay, so you're entrepreneur as well, and then you went down. So what was the beginning for you of the, just the beginning of like, hang on, there's something more? Like, where was the moment of the beginning of your kind of the spiritual path, the path of awakening? What was there a trigger? Was there a video? Was it a book? Or, did you just sort of have this internal call that something needed to change here?
It's a great question. So for me, connecting to spirit happened quite early in life, actually. And I remember when I was 4 and 5 years old, whenever I would close my eyes, especially right before bed, there would an eye, a multicolored, very intricate eye would show up. It would show up on the walls, it would show up on the ceiling, and I freaked out. And I would go in screaming to my mom, the eye's back, the eye's back. And later on in life, I ended up shutting it out and stopping myself due to fear. In fear of seeing spirit. I saw spirit all the time in human form. And what I found out later in life was that when the eye would come, all I had to do was look into the eye, and that opened up my third eye seeing. And so from an early age, that started happening. I blocked it out. And then, oh man, I mean, if I go into my childhood, I think it'll bring a little bit of light into sort of where I found out that a lot happened. There's a lot more. By the time I was 15 years old, I had 10 near-death experiences already. My father raised me and my brother Andres in a way of like a Spartan. He raised us to be warriors. He put us through initiations. There was torture. There was a lot of different things, and so growing up, it put me in a state of seeing things a little bit differently. He was a methamphetamine cook, and so my childhood in having a father like that and having a grandfather that was a police officer had a crazy dynamic. So with having so many near-death experiences at a very early age, I understood that there was a lot more. I understood that there was a lot to what my path was going to be. Where that really kicked in was where there was a situation that I was in when I was 17 years old, where I was shot at point blank with a .357 to my face, and ended up having to hurt the people that were trying to kill me, and I ended up going to prison. So from 17 to almost 21, I had my freedom taken away from me, and I was made a ward of the state of California. And that was where meditation really came in, and it wasn't through anyone teaching me or books or any type of, like I've never been on a podcast. I didn't understand any of that. It was literally through losing my mind and being put in a cage and being put in cells for 23 hours a day led me to going a lot deeper. And within that almost 4 years put me into a state of where I had to really listen to spirit, and I had to go inside to keep myself alive, and with everything that came with that. So I guess I'll stop right there and let you continue asking some questions. But what really showed me that there was more, that there was spirit, was truly trauma, and not something that I was ever looking for, but something through default saved my life more times than I can count on all the fingers and all the toes of a few different people.
Looks like we got our first official gangster on the show. Oh yeah. No, he's not really. But I mean, actually, looking at you, you were, huh? Yeah, gun to the face. That's no fun. But how did you, like, for example, most people that are in prison, I mean, I've heard stories, people find God, some people start reading books, some people write books, people have really profound experiences because, that's one of those situations where you're either going to rise up to become who you got to be, to get through it, or, you could die or literally just lose your shit and your life is pretty much over. Did you sort of know about the concept of meditation, or you didn't even know there was a thing called meditation, and you just found it yourself by just sitting and breathing, and you just literally just started, exploring yourself? Or did you know, oh wait, there's a thing called meditation, well, let's try it? Or you were just on your own and you're like, okay, there's nothing going on, I'm gonna try it?
That's a good question, man. No, I was fully on my own. I didn't know anything about meditation. My family were from the Catholic faith, and very I would say my grandparents, not all of them, but my grandfather never believed, at least on the Italian side, but the rest of them were pretty devout. My parents and the parents' generation were the complete opposite. They acted like they were true Catholics and really just lived a completely different life. So the most that I knew was like a Hail Mary and a Our Father. I was an altar boy for a few years when I was young. And so as far as meditation, no, I thought that I understood prayer and found out real quick that I didn't understand that either. So it truly did come from being literally tortured and locked in a cage for 23 hours a day. And then for 1 hour a day, I was put in a cage with a bunch of other animals. And I mean, in that situation, especially at a young point in life, you literally go crazy, or what is perceived to be crazy. And what that did is it opened up a lot of my channel to fully trust that I had no control. However, I needed to keep myself alive. I needed to, all these dreams would come through of all of these grandiose ideas that would happen in my life. And so what I needed to do was continue to fully trust. And in that situation, with talking to nobody, literally going completely out of my mind many times, it gave me the opportunity to just be. And when I just was, I didn't try to be anything. I just was, because I had all the time in the world. You can't write enough letters. You can't write enough books. There's so much time in the day when there's nothing to distract yourself other than the chaos and confusion and everything else, negative energy that just surrounds that type of an environment. So what I did was I just closed my eyes and I allowed myself to go in and to see what I truly was. That's where I understood how to breathe differently. It's where my channel really opened, like I said before. It's where my dream state really opened. That's where a lot of my psychic intuitive capabilities started coming back. And not being able to speak to anybody about all of that allowed me to have my own personal experiences and not be swayed by what people thought they knew. Because the people that were coming in, the priests and the pastors and the everyone else, for the most part, they were just as much crooked as the cops and guards and everyone else that was in there. Everyone is bought in that environment. And so I knew that I couldn't rely on anybody but myself. And so, yeah, there was no books. I read the Bible many times. I read the Quran many times. I've read all of the spiritual books in hopes of finding something that I resonated with, and in understanding that the majority of them just say the same thing in different ways. I started to ask spirit a lot more than read books. And it's one of the reasons why I've never watched a podcast. It's one of the reasons why I almost completely am isolated from any type of technology. It's so I won't be swayed in either way, where it really is just my personal experience that I have to go off of. Simple, easy, non-confusing. And if there is confusion, that's where I go in. And I find the answer that most resonates with my heart, least of my mind.
Dude, that's epically profound. Most people are, this is one of the things I was teaching when I was teaching guys how to pick up chicks for many years. The first part of the courses was always the destruction of the ego. That part, because all guys are terrified of rejection, right? So I would make them do things that would just make them completely break down, crazy things, run around, like stare, like just do things that would put them in uncomfortable situations where they'd be judged and they would feel uncomfortable, but they would break through it. Because people just care what other people think, and people are influenced by other people's opinions and thoughts. Most of the world is in the state it's in today because they believe in authority. They believe in authority other than themselves, and that is part of the awakening process. It's like God is within us. We have all the answers. We are source. We are the answer. We are the answer in the question. So that's the thing, and that's why all the systems out there and all the information, misinformation, all the propaganda, it's really just to keep people so confused and lost, so they have no idea. And when they're lost and confused and unhealthy and disconnected, they're much more likely just to follow orders, because the people in charge just act like they know what's up. No, we have to do this. Like, no, we definitely got to go to war. Look, we have to go to war. It's for the country. So we got to, all right, well, here's the president, so whatever. So people just give their authority away, and that stops when you realize your true nature. You can't give it away. So that's really powerful. And I don't think I've met somebody who's actually said in that specific way, I stay away from technology and media and all that stuff specifically so that I can just be my own reference of truth and my own experience, not to be swayed. That's fascinating, because for me, it's like I want to go and spend time with nature because it helps me connect and, on so many levels, and reset and ground me, and I just feel amazing. But yeah, that's a part of it, is that I'm just with myself and nature. There's no outside interference. But to actually have that as that's your main reason, is just like you want this to be the your compass. Just this, yeah. That's fucking powerful. Jeez. So not only do you not watch the news, or you don't surf the internet, like none of that shit.
If I need to find a like a place where I need to go, I use Google Maps or whatever that is. I'm a father, so I have my phone for my daughters, for my beloved, and my family. If I'm looking up something very simple, I know how to put it in. I know how to put in the thing in the bar. But other than that, I truly stay away from it as much as possible. I mean, the amount of radiation and the amount of propaganda that comes through with agenda from every side, I wasn't trained to utilize it as a tool. And because it's not a tool that I truly understand how to use, just like if I didn't understand how to use a gun, I wouldn't just pick it up and act like I knew how to use it. And so that is something that I think is extremely powerful for people that understand it as a tool. But for myself, I have many other tools to utilize, so that is one that I don't. And for me specifically, yeah, my heart is my compass, my life experience is my compass. I learn from what has no agenda. The plants have no agenda, the animals have no agenda, and the dogs had no agenda. And so when I'm able to sit for long periods of time and just listen and watch and be and feel, open up all of my senses, sensuality for me is extreme. Everything comes. And earlier in life, I would ask a lot of questions and I would expect all these answers. And when the answers weren't coming the way that I felt they were, I had to reevaluate what my questions were. And so when I'm in nature, or at this point, when I'm anywhere, I feed off whatever energy there is to simply sit and listen and make sure that my questions are really thought out, or I don't ask, because then the answer that's going to come is going to come from the mind instead of my heart.
So what would be your advice to someone who's sitting there, they got a job, they're in a city, and they really feel that call to connect, right? Is there one practice or something they could start doing really to start feeling what their intuition, what their heart is saying? Because it's hard. It's hard out there for a lot of people because they're so in it. They're so in the matrix, but they know something is off. So is there sort of one thing they can start doing to practice to start truly feeling what's coming from the inside? I think a lot of people are really confused and they don't actually know what they're feeling,
It's a good question, Bob. Okay, so when I come about questions, I come from my heart. Like I said, it's only from my own personal experience. Take it or leave it if it resonates, leave it if it doesn't. Number one, stop poisoning ourselves. We put so many poisons inside of ourselves regardless if we know it or not. And we continue to toxify ourselves. So for me, the way that I truly started to feel more was to stop hindering myself from not feeling. So poisoning what comes in my eyes, poisoning what comes in my mouth, poisoning what comes in my energetic field, my ears, my nose, everything, my heart. So that does not serve me in my highest high, no longer. From there, actually allow myself to feel. And one thing that I've come to understand for myself is that the first thing that society does is our body, for me, is one big communication center. Every single hair on our body picks up something if we allow our hair to grow. Every burst of wind, everything of heat, cold, whatsoever, when we're a child, the first thing that they do to us is swaddle us in a blanket. And then they put shoes on us, and then they put clothes on us, and then they put this and that and this and that. They put sunscreen on us. They completely block our body from being the communication channel to everything that's trying to communicate with us. So the first thing I would say, and the first thing that I did for myself that worked the most, was stop poisoning myself. Second was allow my body to breathe. Take my shoes off, take my shirt off, take my pants off when appropriate, right? We have to be discerning to what would make other people feel uncomfortable and comfortable, and in times where we can go into nature where nobody is around, allow ourselves to at least be barefoot. Our feet, the nerve endings in our feet, they pick up so much nutrients, so many different understandings, hot, cold, variances, every temperature, everything you can think of, our feet pick up. So take our shoes off, take our socks off, put our feet into the earth, into the ground, into the mud, into the water. And that's one thing that's, I think, is easy for everyone to do. And when I ask people, how often do you walk barefoot? They look at me like I'm crazy. And I say, let me check out the bottom of your feet. And it's like they've never taken their shoes off. So how can we think that we're going to start feeling when we do everything to block ourselves from feeling? That would be my question. It wouldn't so much be advice, I guess. It would be, if we ask ourselves that question, do we truly want to feel? Well, then allow ourselves to feel.
Yeah, I mean, I never heard anybody say that before. I've talked to a lot of people. No one's actually went, get your feet. Well, I mean, people have said get your feet in the ground, but from a different space, different context. But yeah, you don't usually have people talking about that, actually, just to get the body out to actually experience, the feelings themselves. It's fascinating. Yeah, even just I've had profound experiences just getting my feet on the grass and just being present and literally feeling the energy just ground everything out. Like we're I was there for half an hour once and I was feeling so good. My friend's like, hey, we gotta go. I'm like, I don't want to go. Leave me alone. I just want to be here with my feet on the grass. And even in cities, most cities do have little parks where you can go and hang out by a tree and get your feet in the grass. And I've been studying qigong for just over a year, and I've had some experiences with trees where trees spoke to me and stuff. And so you can actually, if you ask trees if you just with respect and love, but just if you ask them for some energy and you put your hand on them, they help me all the time when I need it. And I'm doing an exercise now where I have the energy come from Pachamama, from below sky, and it kind of comes together in my belly, and then you visualize the same thing happening for the tree. And then when you have your energy and the tree has its energy, you can kind of mingle, and you can take a lot from the tree. And they're very giving and loving, like they're really here to support us. And same thing goes, again, it's just being conscious of it, like the ocean, the river, it's all very, very powerful energy. And that's something I've been connecting with since my breatharian initiation. It's so powerful that there are beings who don't even need to eat, and they just live from that energy. So it's unbelievable. So yeah, and that's what the system does: cover up everything. The sun is bad. Everything that's nature and good is it's so ridiculous. Is bad. It's like no, it's the sun gives us all life, but yeah, that's the enemy now. Let's cover up. It's just so ridiculous, and that's why they're literally just trying to destroy nature. It's like and now the newest plot is I don't even know if you know, but 5G technology that's coming out. It's the story is it'll be faster internet, but every time they run tests, and like birds just fly out of the sky. Whenever they turn it on, they die. It's the Russians studied it for 40 years. It's a high millimeter. It's a weapon, and it just everyone gets sick and dies, real fast too, really fast. And they want to roll it out everywhere. They're rolling it out starting pretty much this year, and within the next 2 or 3 years, every major city. And they have to set up the meters every 300 meters. They have to set up these modems, and they're rolling it out hardcore. Because people are waking up, and this is it. This is their final depopulation move. 20,000 satellites in space, 5G devices for everybody, and then the little satellites everywhere. Now the problem is too many people know about it, and this is one of the things I predict that it'll be really obvious because people will get sick so much. There'll be revolts. People will be shooting those things. There'll be people with Molotov cocktails just going around burning all the new satellites. And I know also we have a lot of protection from other beings. There's lots of signs that we're protected. This is fascinating. I don't know if you know this. It's just so interesting. There's Facebook. This is a few years ago, I think 3 years ago. Facebook was launching some kind of satellite into space, and it was like a big thing. And they were working with SpaceX, and it exploded before it launched. And you can see on the footage a ship flies by very fast, and there's a little flash of light, and the thing explodes. And so if alien spaceships don't want to be seen, they're not seen. So they wanted us to see, hey, we just blew this up for you guys. And there's also footage out there of a plane flying, and it's got this big chemtrail behind it, where they're spraying their, as they always do with their quote weather modification. And an alien ship decloaks, shoots a laser at the chemtrail, and it just dissipates, just disappears. We were supposed to see that. So we're being given messages of, hey, there's technology out there that can, we got your back. So I really do believe that we are protected. And I believe that this is just part of the process to wake people up. When people see what's been what they're doing, you have no choice but to wake up or die. I think that's what it's coming to. I really think that's what it's coming to. Wake up or die. It's intense, but that might be what's happening now.
Yeah, they say that evil is just living backwards. EVIL, LIVE. And when we start living and actually living and having a higher state of awareness, lots of different things happen. You mentioned the plants, you mentioned the trees, and a lot of people, when they ask me, just like when I asked a lot of elders when I really started going deep into my process of how do you talk to them, they would laugh. And they would say, well, you start talking. Actually feel and know that they're a consciousness. It's not just something for nothing. And look at it from this perspective. Because some people will say, well, Bearheart, it's not just that easy. And I'll say, well, let's look at it from this perspective. They've always been around us. They've been hoping, and they've been trying for millennia to communicate with us. And we just pass them by. We kill them, we rape them, we burn them, we use them. We think that they're ours to manipulate. And then all of a sudden you want to have a conversation and you expect them just to say, hey, now you talk to me? It wasn't like that for me. I first, at the very least, had to apologize for all the wrongdoing that I did. I had to think deeper into it and understand and feel them for what they are, start to feel their energy. And then when I started asking them more, they said, well, stop asking so many questions and just listen. Feel me first. And once that happened, and the introduction came, just like I was speaking about yesterday, when we're speaking with spirit, when we're speaking with consciousness, you and I are consciousness, and the first thing that you and I do when we approach each other usually is respect one another, notice each other as another consciousness, and introduce ourselves. Hello, I am so-and-so, nice to meet you. And when was the last time we did that with a plant? When was the last time we did that to the ocean? When was the last time We did that to the animal instead of just take the picture, take the shot, take the meat. And so if we can stop taking, if we can be aware of the doing and the using, specifically those words and what that actually represents, and that correlates directly with the sacred medicines, our relationships will be much more fruitful. They will be less confusing. We'll be able to listen much more acutely, and our senses will open up the way that they're supposed to. Introduce ourselves. Take the time. Even if it seems a little crazy, and even if it seems like, oh, this isn't getting anywhere, well, that, but let's go back. How many times did they try to talk to us and we just cut them down? How many times did they try to talk to us and we just peed on them? You know? So now it's time to listen. Now it's time, when we put our hand on them, not to take anything unless we ask first. From a blade of grass to a pretty flower. They're here. Most of the time when I ask, are you here for us? They say, partly yes. But you never ask first. You just take. Please just ask. And all the doors will start to open. And I feel that directly goes hand in hand with the women and children that we were talking about. Yeah.
The shocking part is that something that you talking about something so simple and common sense would be revolutionary. Have respect for all life. You know, communicate with respect with all life, not just people. And most people don't even with people. That's the thing. So when we're disrespecting people, like, you're not thinking about the plant medicine or the, you know, animals or plants or minerals or anything else. So yeah. That makes so much sense. Yeah, so simple. Yep. So when you were a kid, you mentioned something very interesting. Your father left when you were 1, you said. So, but you also said he had all these kind of man brutal rituals that you went through. Was that a different father, a stepfather, or did he come back? He came back, and the question would be, again, it parallels to my life. For me, my trials were age 4, pretty much 4 or 5, up to 15, and it was just just physical and psychological abuse from my mother, and there was no father. So it was absolute hell. And I knew, again, I just had this faith of, like, it won't be like this forever. You just have to survive, and I just survived. But yeah, like, fascinating. Like, not a lot of people have a near-death experience, but 15 of them is a lot. So I'd like to hear more about what the hell was he doing, because that's going to be brutal, but probably fascinating. And how did those experiences affect you later in your journey, what you learned?
Good question. So my mother was my rock, always has been my best friend. No matter what I went through, she's always been there. Pops left when I was 1, and visitation was every other weekend. And the times where my dad was around and didn't just leave us with our stepmother, there was very much of like I said, he was a methamphetamine cook, so the majority of the time he was in the garage. And when all I wanted was attention, especially from Dad. And so the initiation started really early, and primarily it was myself and my brother that was six weeks apart. And yeah, so he taught us, I would say from in a very early age, what pain was about. And so he would cut us, he would burn us, he would I would say beat, because truly that's what it was. However, at the time I would just say, well, yeah, he's testing me. And so what he would do is he would hit us past the point of crying, past the point of stop, don't hurt me, to the point of where the animalistic animal really came out. And he did that, from what I know later in life, was to create a side in us where it was very easy to turn on that mode when needed. He went to prison when I was 3-4 years old. And when he came home, I didn't know really anything up until then, but I know that he was much different. And whatever happened to him in prison while he was away created a side in him where he was not going to allow any of that to happen to his sons. And so although my dad was very sensitive, my dad was very loving. He was a man that every woman wanted to be with and every man wanted to represent, but they never knew his true side. His own family never knew his true side. I think his wife knew a part of his side, my mother knew a part of his side, and my brother Andres and myself really were the only ones that truly knew his deepest and darkest. So ultimately, he was grooming us to be warriors. He was grooming us to be soldiers. He was grooming us to be predators against the biggest predators that could be in life. And so he put us through trainings where first was pain, second was attacking, third was he would make us kill animals. If there was a skunk or if there was a possum or if there was a raccoon, he would force my brother and I, either with our bare hands or with some type of object that we could find, he would literally force us to kill it. My brother was very much more of a softer heart. My brother had my dad from the start. I didn't. And so what that turned on in me at that time was, I got it. And if you can't really do it, I'll do it twice as good to make dad happy. And then he would reward us. So as he would burn us, afterwards we would get ice cream. He would cut us to let us know what that felt like. And then we would have one-on-one time with dad where he would cuddle with us. And so it was a very confusing time in my process. But at the same time, I was a young boy that was truly just wanting some type of affection from my father and recognition and acceptance, being that I felt abandoned. And from what I heard from family was that he always wanted a son, he always wanted a junior. And then when he had me, he left. And so I did everything possible that when he was around and when he chose to give me that little bit of time, no matter if it was teaching me war, if it was teaching me whatever, that I did the best that I could to get as many hugs and as many kisses and as many good job, son, I love you. And thank you for being strong. You know, my family prided themselves, half of my family are Sicilian. They prided themselves in a large chunk of our family being mafia. And so a big part of the family dynamic was a gang. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil was something that I learned from a very, very early age. I mean, I lived with my mother, who if she found out any of this that my father did, she would have had him arrested again. And I had to cover it all up. I had to act like I was just the surfer and the skateboarder and the loving son, the Cub Scout, the Boy Scout. But when I went to Dad's house, it was war training. It was gladiator training. It was creating a young soldier. And that soldier had rules. The rules were harm no one unless they harm you. No women and no children. However, if there's a predator, be it animal or human, you have 100% right to do everything that I taught you if your life is in danger. And then life went on, life continued. A lot of that trauma opened up my channel as well from a very early age. I'd say about 10 years old, I would see in other childhood friends, I would see, like what you were talking about, eye gazing. I would look in somebody's eyes for 2 seconds and I would see everything. I would see where their fear came from. I would see where their insecurities came from. And so when people would say something, I would immediately tap in, not respectfully, because I didn't understand how to be respectful psychically. I would tap into the majority of my girlfriends. I was molested by women when I was very young, and that happened for quite a long time. And I looked at it as, well, they're all older, so it's sort of cool. But it's also weird because I don't know what I'm doing. And they would just tell me what to do to them, and they would tell me how to please them. Lo and behold, as soon as I would look in their eyes, I would say, well, where's this really coming from? And they would tell me that their dad hurt them, or their grandfather hurt them, or their brother hurt them, or their uncle hurt them, or somebody had done something to them sexually. And that's when I started to pick up on really where my protective role was supposed to go. And being a protector of the sisters, women, children, was where that really started, was when they all started coming to me saying, my boyfriend just raped me, or this guy just raped me, and nobody believes me. They forced me to do this, and I feel like I'm going to kill myself, and my family just wants to put me on pills, and from an early age. And so a lot of the teachings that my father instilled in me and forced into me, I was able to channel it. And with all of that piss and vinegar, is what my grandfather would say, I went to work. And yeah. And then at about 13 is when I started my first gang. So when you said I have a real life gangster, from 13, the gang was specifically to help when sisters would come to me, girlfriends would come to me, and they would say that they'd been harmed. I needed to make sure that I had other brothers that were willing to back them up. What happened was that nobody other than like my family understood that way of life. My buddies were all little surfers and little skaters. And when I would go to them saying, hey, our friend just got hurt, what are we going to do about it? They would like, well, what do you mean? I'm a little boy. What am I going to do about it? My stepmother was from Mexico, and she was raised in gangs, a gang household. And the youngsters of what I know as Sureños, Southside, they understood respect a little bit more. They understood protection a little bit more. And so in Spirit's own way, brought more of that influence. And whereas I tried to start my own brotherhood in helping, it wasn't successful, so I joined another gang. And being the only white one in the gang, my role was what I did best, and that was to be a soldier, to be undetected, to be the stealthy warrior, to go and put in work against older, stealthy warriors that were truly dark. Sha, sha, sha.
If there's anybody out there who should be wearing the spiritual gangster t-shirt, it's you, because they have those, you know. So that's funny. on at least a couple of levels.
Can't make this shit up, brother.
No, you cannot. You've certainly not had a boring one, that's for sure. Yeah. I think there's another topic that I think is so valuable for everyone, but I think specifically for the men, and this is something that I've been talking about more and more recently, because there aren't that many men out there. You know, most are really just boys. Yeah, confused boys. And you know, it's what you said earlier. You kind of had your initiations. You know, you were in a position where you had no choice. You just had to get through it and grow. And mine was surviving childhood. That was my initiation. After that childhood, nothing in life has ever actually been a challenge. You know, people looking, well, how did you do this and this? And I'm like, it's easy. You just do it. That's not really a big deal. So it's one of those things that I find you know there's no real. You can never really feel fulfilled unless you find your purpose. And part of that, maybe it's a separate journey, maybe they're kind of interlinked together, but to find your center, to find your you know, to know who you are and what you stand for, and as a man, just to have some code, you know, and to go through some hard shit, you know. And I meet guys and they just haven't had any hard shit, like nothing. They're just like totally normal, everything. Like their biggest trauma is like not being able to pick which shirt to wear to like a special party. Like literally, I've met guys like this, and I'm looking at them like, dude, you need to get the, you know, you need something. You need some shit to go down. So yeah, what would you say to the wonderful souls out there who know that they've never had the adversity, and they just haven't found that you know, that strength?
Good question. I think primarily I would say good. I'm glad you haven't had to go through some really, really challenging trials and tribulations, and also understand that a lot of people have. And one thing, like you said, there are many more confused boys than there are focused men. And one of the reasons why I feel personally is because they haven't had anything to really stand for. You know, sex, money, and power is what we're taught. Sex, money, and power. And so that's what the majority of the confused boys stand for. And that's why so many women are raped. That's why so many people die and kill for money. Prostitution. Human sex trade, which is the biggest industry that our world has ever had. And power goes with power. From stepping on the bug to smacking your wife around to dominating another man just because some think that they can. And would I ask brothers to do that have nothing to stand for? There's this saying that if you can't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. Well, there's a lot of falling that's happening. A lot of tripping, a lot of slipping. That's not helping anyone. And if one of our responsibilities is to be the seed, well, if you have a lot of shit seeds, it's not going to grow anything good. And from my perspective, we can't do that to the portals. We can't do that to the mothers. If we are going to plant our seed, it needs to be a good, healthy, strong seed. So I ask brothers to remember the time before they went to war, before they were forced into war, before they were forced to rape and pillage and all of that. Because what we were here for, what the Creator, with the eyes behind the sun, why we were created to become physically bigger and stronger, wasn't to take from that was not as big and as strong. It was to protect them from other big, strong forces that were coming. The Holy Grail, in my opinion, is the woman's womb. Everlasting life is the birth cycle. And so if we can't really stand for anything, stand for our mothers, stand for our grandmothers, stand for our sisters, stand for the rest of the children, because they're the ones who are truly being harmed. They're the ones for centuries and centuries and centuries that have been being used. And I see these brothers that they have nothing to stand for. They start to wake up, and then they stand for animal rights, and they stand for no pollution in the ocean, and they stand for whatever. And that's wonderful. That's honorable. However, that's bypassing what gave you life. The ocean didn't give you life. The animal didn't give you life. Your mother gave you life. Your grandmother gave you life. Your great-grandmother gave you life. And every single one of those generations at one point in time or another, something has been taken from them. So I ask us, are we still going to stand for a flag that's easily burned? Are we going to stand for a border that means nothing except for segregation? Are we going to stand for politics that's only confusing us and poisoning us on purpose? Or can we put that to the side and we can stand for true brotherhood and stand as protectors of the sisters and the children? And I have brothers that get on their high horse and like, Bearheart, well, what about the men? It's like, you down men. No, I don't down men. I call out predators. I was trained at a very early age to spot a predator. Very, very early. And so that's what I call out. That's what I call in. To go from predator to protector. Because truly, from my perspective, that's the only way our hearts can truly be safe, is if the women's bodies are safe, if their minds are safe from us, if they still have to look over their shoulder, if children still have to worry about being kidnapped and sold off to be slaves. You know, once we become about 10 to 15 years old, it's very, very rare that a man, boy is ever abducted. Women, they always throughout their whole life have to worry about that. They always have to worry about what they wear. They always have to worry about the way that they speak. They always have to worry. And if we can truly, with compassion, see into their eyes, we'll see that. And some men see that and they feed off of it. So one thing I ask brothers, any brothers that are on here, is stop feeding off that. Understand it from a different perspective. Have compassion to that. And stop looking at them as only as sex objects. Stop looking at them as sex, money, and something to have power over. Instead, to not be controlling, to not be possessive, to not feel that we are anything over whatsoever, but to look at them as truly what they are. They have a very, very, very special role, just like we do. And that role is to be safe. That role is to be able to look at us in our eyes and for them to be able to touch our heart and to help us heal from generation after generation after generation of us going to war, of us pillaging, of us doing things that we did not want to do, because the majority of wars did not have to do with somebody invading us. It had to do with us invading another people's or an animal's or some type of species. So that's what I would say. For the brothers that are slipping and tripping and are confused, yeah, we need some initiations. That's where I go into vision quests. That's where I go into soul quests. That's where we get really real with brothers. That's where we call out what needs to be called out. We clear what needs to be cleared. We go from predator to protector with all of our hearts and all of our souls. And when one of us is present and when one of us is in the space, every sister knows it. And every brother knows it too. You don't have to speak it. We just have to be, and be the best that we can be with what we were here for. We're here to be strong, mentally, physically, emotionally. We're here to be sensitive, emotionally, physically. So let's be. And when we see something that isn't right, let's call it out. And the way that we do that in brotherhood, because it's not only sisters that fear brothers, other brothers fear brothers. And that's the thing. We may not worry about being raped. If other brothers were worried about another brother forcing themselves to kiss me, forcing themselves not to put something up my butt, forcing themselves not to touch me in that way, we would be having a completely different conversation. But most men have never been forced sexually. As soon as that happens, that's a different conversation. Some have. We need to have compassion to that, because that usually happened when we were boys. When we were boys is when we were touched. When we were boys is when we were forced. And that happens by other boys and other women that were touched and forced. It's just a perpetuating cycle. So we stop that. And when you and I can truly be brothers, and when I can truly trust you to be around other sisters and children with no doubt in my mind that there will ever be, no matter if they're butt naked, running around, dancing around, where I can look at that like my child. My children run around naked. Animals run around naked, but I'm not trying to go up to them and have those thoughts. Our thoughts need to become more pure. And for me to be able to trust you, if I was to go to war, if I was to go out of town and to say, my beloved needs to be protected, I trust you to sleep in the same bed as my wife. If I'm a real brother and you ask that of me, I say, thank you for trusting me, brother. I won't sleep in that bed. I'm going to be awake at that door, ready if anyone else tries to come in. That's when we have a different connection. That's when we can embrace each other. That's when we can truly feel each other's heart as men, is when we don't snake on each other. And that's what I call in. Not only do I call in the protection, the guardianship, the true love and respect for the feminine and the sisters and children, but I call that in for each other. Because that's what was lacking. The majority of boys, men that I knew and I grew up with are dead or in prison for life. The ones that would have died for me, the ones that would have said, brother, I'll never sleep in that bed. I'm going to be at that door and I will not fall asleep on her watch. They've all died. And what I'm looking for, what Spirit continues to tell me is you were too young then to really understand how to bring that in. Now you see differently. And now you're filled with love. I'm not filled with hate. I'm not filled with anger. I'm not filled with resentment. I've been able to heal. I've been able to see from different eyes. And so that's what I call in for brothers. Because when we look at each other in the eyes, no daggers, heart to heart, can we truly trust each other?
Dude, getting me emotional.
That's what we all need, bro.
Dude, for me, it was such a big theme, loyalty in my life, because I was betrayed by my mother and my father because he left. And, I always had like one or two really close friends, and then all the other kids would make fun of me. I was the weird kid, I dressed funny, and I was just all shy. So it's kind of what I've been looking for my whole life, is really to have true brothers that I could trust. And for me, like, it's really one of the biggest themes in my life that I would always go out of my way. If somebody's my friend, like if there's a real situation, it breaks my heart to think that it really hurt me knowing how far I would go for my friends. Like if one of my friends called me, it's like I'm in a bar and I think these guys are gonna fuck me up. I'll get a fucking bat. I'm crazy. I'll show up crazy And I'll you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm fucking nuts with that shit. I'm insane. But knowing that that's not the case, that people don't have that loyalty, it's hard to find. I don't, you know, it's really tough. And I guess that comes from my childhood, that I didn't have anybody. So yeah, that's, yeah.
You can feel that.
Yeah.
Those are the commitments we need to be able to make with each other. Those are the true commitments. Can we stand with each other? Can we cry with each other? Can we really learn with each other? Can we take off all of our masks that societal norms pin us as men? This is how it's supposed to be, blah, 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 blah. Can we really just be with each other? Not in fear, not with intimidation, not with any type of judgment, competition. Camaraderie is wonderful. Competition breeds war. And for you feeling like you didn't have anybody, it's a little bit easier at times. Some just completely go off and say, you know, I'll never be there for anyone because nobody was there for me. That's what breeds the predator. I was hurt, I was injured, I looked for help, and nobody was there for me. So now, why should I feel empathy for my victim? It was one of the reasons why I was able to justify everything that I did in life. Some of the things that we talked about. They weren't innocent, but in a way now they were. They were just wounded. They were wounded children that were also confused, that no one was there for them. And so they felt that it was their right, an actual right, to go and hurt innocent people because they were innocent when they were hurt. And so at that time, what I felt was Spirit was working through me as an opportunity to have a wake-up call. Many gangsters stopped gang affiliation because of certain actions that happened in my life. Many predators that hurt women were never able to hurt another woman. And I say that hugging the little bear heart. Back then I was Frankie. I've had probably 50 to 100 different nicknames in my life. Hugging that little Frankie. Just trying to help the ones that were hurt that didn't deserve it. And as an adult, instead of hurting, where there's all different types of medicine, and depending on the situation, all different types of medicine is necessary at all different times. Sometimes the best medicine tastes like shit, but it's good for us. And what I've learned is that the ultimate medicine truly is love. Pure love. And capability to defend love. And that's where I call in brothers. That's where I call in La Fuerza Sagrada, the sacred force, where we can be there for each other, where we can truly from our heart space be there for the plants, for the animals, for the sisters, for the children, because what's sacred is everything. And when we're able to become true protectors and true guardians, stop taking and stop using and stop doing, hop out of the paradigm of sex, money, and power, that's where everything really starts to change. Cards are stacked against us, but one solid brother in a crowd of 1,000 is noticed by 999.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. When you're really in integrity, and this has been one of the biggest things coming in for me as I've been waking up more and more. It's like everything has to be in integrity. Everything. Like the way you deal with your family, your landlord, your friends, your enemies, and as you're saying, fucking plants, even in all relationships. And so literally in my last week-long Satori, it just came in so strong. Like, go and fix everything, get your life in order. Any relationships that aren't serving, you gotta move on to those people that you've hurt or whatever. Apologize, really just get everything clear. Yeah, integrity is it's just so important. Just because there's no cheating. I mean, there's no cheating. You can't cheat. You can't cheat God. That's really what it is. It's like, oh, I'll just do this and nobody will find out. Well, the consciousness knows everything. You're it. That's right. So that's really, really powerful. So what you're talking about is it's something I've again, that's been coming up for me more, which is the warrior of the heart. Being heart-centered, and yet fighting when it's absolutely as a protector or for justice and whatever. I think right now it seems that the war is it's a war of consciousness. Actually, this is what I'm realizing more and more. What I'm here to do is to raise the consciousness and make people aware that a lot of the stuff that's going on, it's literally just to suppress the consciousness, get you so much in your pain and anger and unhealthy in your body and so disconnected. You have absolutely no power, no awareness whatsoever. And they're trying to keep people on the lowest possible levels on that scale I mentioned to you, the Hawking scale. Guilt, shame, fear, survival, running around. But once you transcend that, then you actually, you see actually we don't have to be in those levels. But it's a profound war. So I guess last couple things. You mentioned you mentioned some of the stuff that you do. Tell me a little bit more about, because I know you have a space and you work with people. So tell me like really, what is your passion? What is the work that you're doing now to basically to do what your role is here?
Thank you. Yeah, so for the past 5 years, I was a lead guardian at Sacred Mountain Lodge in Ramona, California. And recently, some of the tribe and my beloved moved up a few thousand more feet in elevation into the high alpines, into a very, very small town called Julian. And that is now the name of that specific center is Casa del Corazón, House of the Heart. And truly the mission and the goal, like I said before, is to create a space for the sisters and children to be truly safe, and for the brothers to learn how to turn from predator to protector. And if they weren't predator and they're just lost, how to become a protector in the best of way. Like I said before, I'm a student of the energies, and I'm a holder of many different energies and many different medicines and different life ways and spiritual ways, and opening up our senses, opening up our intuitive capabilities. And so that ranges from, at times it's medicine work, at times it's going out for 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, a month-long vision quests to really reroute, recalibrate, come back to the natural circadian rhythm. And my beloved and I and good brother Anthony DiPolito, we take groups. There's wild brothers, wild sisters, and wild couples. So we take out the brothers to learn to rewild, to let go of anger and resentment and shame and everything that's deepest and darkest inside of ourselves, and to be able to bring all of that transmuted into light, into love, and into the protector space, to live differently and to hold each other accountable, truly. Because like you said, integrity is number one. We could say love, we could say peace, we could say joy, we could say all of that. And if we're living out of integrity, when the priest or when the guru or when the shaman has nobody around, what the fuck are they doing? Because the majority of them, as we know through history, They're not doing good. Very few are actually doing good. When everyone's eyes are on them, they may act like they're doing good. Now we know the real. So integrity is number one. And in order to not force integrity, we hold each other accountable. And we actually develop sisterhood, brotherhood. And couples coming together, whether or not it's brother with brother, sister with sister, sister with brother, however people choose to find their love and find their connection is up to them. What we do is teach to connect much deeper to whoever they want to connect with, primarily to themselves, everything around them, and then to another being. And so that's a part. Different medicine ceremonies to be able to really alleviate the ego, have the ego step to the side and let our soul truly come through in our subconscious. I teach people that may not be ready for plant medicine and animal medicine to shamanically journey through many different ways. Some through drums. Some people hear of the lower world, middle world, and upper world, but don't understand how to traverse those worlds and understand how to navigate and go to utilize information that we can bring back. People talk about the Akashic records, but they don't know how to go there. They don't know how to tap into that. I teach them how to relearn, because all it is just opening up a few codes and letting you relearn. Instead of thinking that I know anything more than you, I'm just saying, well, this is what your question is. Here's a way to remember it yourself. So that way I also don't become the computer or whatever else that people think that they're going to listen to. If something resonates, it does. If it triggers them and lights them up, it does. And in the best of ways. You mentioned Qigong and energy work. I'm a deep practitioner of lots of different types of energy work. Some be healing, some be increasing our own chi, understanding how to utilize and how to grow in that way. And a lot of times what really comes out of it is simply just being present, showing up, because I never know what's going to happen until it actually happens. I never know what I'm going to say until I say it. I'm not in my mind, I'm fully in my heart. And to be able to appreciate somebody while they step into their most authentic, true authenticity, with no type of I'm sorry or is this offensive or whatever else. You know, my true hope is that we can all look at each other and share in that authenticity and in its variety. And so that's truly what a lot of people come for, is when they're living a double life and they want to dive deeper, not be judged. When their channel opens up and they start light language or different energies start passing through them. A lot of my work intuitively and psychically came from being involved in a psychic school for 5 years and understanding how to help people relearn that we are all psychic. When somebody claims to be a psychic and they think that they know more than other people, that's ego. We are all psychic. It's like saying, I know how to tie my shoe. Yeah, we're all capable of tying our shoe. And just like we're all capable of remembering all of our intuitive capabilities and all of our sensory. So that is what I hold space for. That is what I witness and observe people doing for themselves. They just need a space to be able to do so in time, dedication, and intention. And so I set that up. If they don't know how, I give them the opportunity and allow them to find it for themselves in a very safe container. Sometimes that's at Casa del Corazon. Sometimes that's in the bush. I have brothers and sisters that contact me all over the world and that they may not be able to travel, and so I go to them. I have connections all over the world to different indigenous tribes, different indigenous ways, and so if people want to get really deep into the bush, then all we have to do is get a plane ticket and set the time aside and we go. And so there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different techniques, a lot of different tools that I help people remember. First and foremost, just show up. And so that's what I do. When people say, what do you do? I just show up. And wherever I'm at, whatever medicine is needed, regardless if I'm just sitting there or if I'm just listening or if it's a hug or if it's looking in somebody's eyes or if it's stopping somebody from hurting somebody else, I just show up. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you're talking about just presence, really. And yeah, again, the more I wake up, the less there is about planning or thought or anything, and it's just being at service and just being there and then helping in any way that I can. And yeah, that's the only joy there is, really. There's nothing else for me. You know, I just got to that point where, like, whenever I'm, you know, if I get confused or worried or should I do this or anything, I just come back to, why am I here? Oh yeah, I'm here to just help everybody. And then as soon as I realize how much fun I'll be having when I'm helping the next group or the next person, whatever, I'm just like, oh yeah, it'll be fine, because I'll be so enjoying it in that moment that I don't have to worry about how am I going to get to the thing or all this stuff. It's just ego crap bullshit, you know. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what the spiritual journey is. It's just transcending the ego and remembering our true nature, which is not, oh no, I wonder what's going to happen if this person says this. You know, what's going to happen? Should I eat the pizza? I don't know if I should. It's all noise. Dude, it's been a real pleasure hanging out. Super fun. And I have the funny feeling we'll hang out again sometime, somewhere in the world. So any last thoughts or words for the beautiful souls who are watching the podcast?
First and foremost, love. Love, 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 love. Thank you for being present. If only one person watches this, because I just met Sasha. I have no idea. This is the first time this podcast, anything has ever been in my field. It's usually all very much face-to-face, person-to-person. So thank you for your presence. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. That is the most valuable thing for me, is time and presence. So I appreciate that. I want to call in my daughter Haley Page and Summer Rose, my beloved Brianna Lynn Cavion, all of my tribe. And if anyone would like to get in contact with me, it's very easy. It's www.iambearheart.com. Or if anybody's looking for any type of dog advice, because that is a big part in our awareness, you can also go to www.daoofdogtraining.com, DAO of dogtraining.com. Those are the easiest ways. My email is iambearheart@gmail.com. So that's the easy way to get in contact. But ultimately, I just thank you. I feel so blessed, brother, that you offered this to me the first time. There's been other times people have offered different types of things and it just didn't feel right. And so thank you for feeling right. And I hope to continue to grow this brotherhood and to support you in all of your endeavors, truly from my heart. And anyone else that's watching and supporting you, I fully support you. And if anything that I said resonates, wonderful. Share it if you wish. If not, don't. Utilize it if you wish. If not, don't. Love.
I love my job. That's so good. This is what I do. It's so good. As usual, me hanging out with some epic soul on an epic journey. That's what it is. So do share it with other people. If you know somebody who is on the, they need a little push, they need a little love, they need a little consciousness, spread the podcast around. Feel free to, we are on, if you're watching on YouTube, then hi, YouTube. If you're listening on audio, we're also on YouTube now. So you can go and watch this pretty beautiful tattooed, bearded man and feel his love, and you can see it in his eyeballs. It's beautiful. So you can check it out on YouTube. And that's a wrap. Can't wait for the comments, because I have a feeling y'all are going to like this one. Love you guys, and see you in the next one. Oh! Ciao. I was a legit owl sound. Was that an owl?
It's my own call.
That's a good call.
Thank you.